So welcome to the Filmmakers podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
How are you both feeling?
Good, really excited.
It's been a long time.
We've been working on this for a long time, and now finally people are getting to see it.
Yeah, we just want to share it.
Yeah,
with the world.
There's people in another room building Lego with skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Oh, they're building.
I mean, how is that as a moment? I mean, that must be pretty meta. Like, I'm guessing it's been with you for a long time.
Yeah, something about seeing a ship and characters that we designed in Lego.
In Lego form.
Really, I don't know. It got
That's
really
when you made
real.
it.
It got real.
But the whole experience has been, that from the start. Like, you're constantly feeling, I can't believe this is really happening. Surely they're going to stop us.
Yeah,
And say, this has all been a big mistake.
we were all putting the Legos together at our various houses.
Yeah.
It's a very soothing thing as adults, I think. Like Lego, I discovered it recently, like playing with my nephews, and then actually, like my dad's got back into it, and it's a really fun thing. It's nice that it sort of connects. So what does Star Wars mean to you both? I mean, like I remember for me, the 3 original films I would watch as a kid, like endlessly. Like we'd watch it probably every other weekend, or at least like once a month.
Yeah.
And it was kind of what formed my my core of like what epic good and evil. This wonderful sort of funny humor.
Yeah, I always think
that whole
it
world.
makes me think of like the sense of escape. Like I grew up in a small town, and just that image of like Luke staring at the twin setting suns and just like wanting to go out into the world and to do something. Like that always really resonated with me.
Yeah, that it was, just as George Lucas intended it, that it was this modern mythology, and it was an adventure. It was exciting, but also it somehow felt deeper and it felt meaningful, and in ways that you couldn't even quite articulate as a kid.
Yeah, I think that was it for me as well. It was the warmth behind it, and it was these central relationships had such depth and gravitas, and it was I always look at sci-fi and it's just a way to expand drama onto a galactic scale, and actually you can kind of take those bits of psychology and emotion and sort of human interaction and project them into something so much bigger.
Yeah, the more fantastical or sci-fi the setting, the more deeply human it has to also be. It goes hand in hand.
So let's talk about how Skeleton Crew sort of came. How did that first idea, cool? How did it sort of form for you guys?
It started really simply as just a pitch that we had that wasn't anything more complicated than let's take a group of kids that don't really know that much about the Star Wars galaxy and get them lost in the Star Wars galaxy and watch them try to find their way home. And I pitched that to Lucasfilm in like 2017, right after we had finished the first Spider-Man, as a film initially. And then I was just busy making Spider-Man
was the pitch
movies.
Goonies in space?
You don't have to say Goonies in space.
Well, because you're pitching it
to Kathy Kennedy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like she's the person you don't reference Amblin to.
Yes.
And she's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, we weren't trying to do Goonies in space. We were just wanting to do the story about kids. The idea that the kids wouldn't know how to even start or fly a ship was such a fun challenge. We've seen, Han Solo can just hop into the ship and escape.
Yeah.
And they had to make up things like, oh, the hyperdrive doesn't work now. Oh no, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And for our kids, they just have this different set of problems. And so it was the same Star Wars galaxy that we're just fascinated by and want to delve into. But we have this different entry point because they're kids.
That was just an era when people were making films with kids as main characters that took them seriously as main characters. And I think that's the reference point. The idea that we're going to tell the story from these kids' perspective and not talk down to them, and really, let them be the main characters. It's not just like Goonies. Like Empire of the Sun is another great one that we were referencing.
Yeah.
Non-Amblin is like the Explorers, and like there's really so many of that era where they weren't afraid to like let a 10-year-old kid like be the lead. Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite things about this is it does have that 80s, 90s kind of vibe, and it's so timeless. But the kids have heart and they they've got charisma like they are leads, but there's also that obviously that sort of childhood thing going on.
Yeah.
I mean, was it always just in the back of your mind this has to be like a kids movie and are you thinking tone in terms of what era in my mind, even though it's in sci-fi and it's the future, we're setting, because it doesn't feel like a millennium. I mean that in a good way. It doesn't feel like sort of a 2000s 2010 thing. It feels like it's going back to that
well, those two things
age.
line up in an interesting way. Like we were talking last night about how Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi are also 80s movies. And so it kind of it all feels like they all line up in a way where there's just a certain feeling that we were trying to capture that just reflects those movies, I guess.
Yeah, and
we were never trying to be 80s.
Yeah, is because when we think of being that age, we both have the same experience of, when we would go outside to play, we would just go off and be imagining that something like Goonies or Star Wars would happen to us.
Yeah, our imagination is 80s.
Yeah.
Because that's when we're from.
Well, I think that's exactly what you said about the going out to play. That's kind of what I meant. Is like, I mean, I feel sort of I feel so privileged to have been part of that age where you weren't on your phones all the time. You would go out and you would have adventures, and your imagination and reality were kind of intrinsically linked.
Yeah, my imagination was like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Goonies. Like that's what I was hoping would happen to me.
Island.
And Monkey Island. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. That's why there's this element too where the kids in the universe know about Jedi, and that's like those are like the bedtime stories to them.
Yeah.
And it's something they aspire to, and it doesn't quite work out the way they think it will, kind of a thing. We wanted to even include that element.
Yeah, there's stories that exist within their world that would spark their imagination in the same way that these movies sparked our imagination as kids.
Yeah, it's very meta. So how did you kind of did you start off for a point of creating an individual story that would maybe be a series? Because obviously you've got to fit into the Star Wars overall universe. Like where is it set? When is it set? It's a very complicated thing to sort of piece into. Did you start with the sort of the heart of the story? Like, how did that?
Well, because we had this sort of like long gestation period, like we initially pitched it as a film, and then Disney Plus came along, and then Jon Favreau kind of changed everything with The Mandalorian, and that allowed us a lot more freedom, especially when Jon came on board as the producer. We were like, oh, this is the perfect era for the kids to get lost in the galaxy because it's a little bit more chaotic and lawless. Bad for them, good for us from a storytelling perspective.
But our story, our 90% of our focus was just making this be a good story on its own, and how it can connect and fit in. That's kind of the second part of the puzzle once you have everything kind of assembled.
Yeah, the challenge is to like make sure it's a good story without any of the Star Wars elements. Like it has to stand as a good story on its own, and then everything that's Star Wars about it, like hopefully just elevates that.
I think that's very much why this is a success. Why this is a success, and why like Mandalorian's a success. And I think that's what like really stands out of like the best of the sort of Star Wars franchise is that you feel like the people that are creating it really understand the world and the lore and all that kind of thing, but take away all the Star Wars and it's actually just a really good personal story that has a heart, and it has people that you can believe in and their interactions.
Yeah, you don't want to use the galaxy as a crutch.
Yeah.
And we know all that stuff. Like that all comes easy because we're just fans of it all. So making it fit into the galaxy or understand the tone of Star Wars was something that we weren't as worried about, and we had the teams of.
You have such an amazing support team when you have John and Dave, and then all of like Lucasfilm.
Like Chang and everyone who understands how to do it.
Those two are like Star Wars Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did the actual writing and the idea process come for making this into the original sort of film idea? Let's start with that, and then how that then developed into the sort of TV
We never
series.
wrote it as a film. We always had like just sort of a loose outline, knowing that it would be about like get lost, get home, and then as soon
adventures
happen in the middle.
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans happen.
And then when Jon came aboard, it was right as I was finishing the third Spider-Man film, and then it all just really kicked into high gear. We just started writing drafts as quickly as we could to get
and
things in front of him, because he was like, "Great, let's shoot." I've sort of built this system down at Manhattan Beach Studios. Like, we're ready to go. Like,
strap on a VR headset and fly through your set.
Yeah, start building your universe.
It's crazy the way they do it.
Yeah. So it was like slow, and then extremely fast.
So, I mean, how is your collaboration together in terms of that, that creation process?
We just kind of start riffing, writing drafts, trading them back and forth.
Yeah, we've known each other
kind of just snowballs.
We were 18, so it's like, it's not a very formal process anymore.
No, it's an informal process.
Yeah.
So like lots of sort of, do you do a lot of like world building first, like discussing the characters, discussing the world, discussing the planets? Do you have like loads of conversations before you even get to the writing, or do you kind of like start
we talk it out a little bit and then just go off and write and give each other scripts, like trading script pages back and forth.
But that's what's so fun about it, is like the character stories and the world building all inform each other. And what was so we would just be doing that naturally, just through conversations and trading drafts, but then you bring in
but also our production designer and we're saying, oh yeah, this is their home planet, here's some ideas, and then as we're writing it, they're giving us concept art.
Wow. Okay.
So the concept art can inform what you're writing, and you're writing.
Like, oh, I see. Like there could be a scene where they go from this part of the drawing to that part of the drawing.
You get to. It all timed out so that it was all happening at the same time, which is kind of the best, because you get to draw from all the talent of the entire team while you're still writing.
Yeah, which is this great benefit of, weirdly, the technical side of the kind of the Jon Favreau process, or the process of using the volume wall, because you have to have all these designs figured out already
way ahead of time,
pre-production, which is even though it's all digital, it brings it back to more of the approach that you had to do in the old days, where you were building physical models or doing giant background paintings.
Do you think that really helps people get on side with the vision though? Like when you've got so many visual assets that you're able to tweak in real time and sort of create that world.
Yeah, it's also like great for us too, because you have like our production designer Oliver Scholl or like Doug Chang at Lucasfilm, like they're helping you solve problems as well. You're like, we need the ship to do these 3 things. And then you give it to them. You give them a problem, and then they come back like engineers and have solved it.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a really supportive team, and you get everyone on board and working together to create this sort of shared vision.
So what were some of the sort of themes and characters you had in the beginning? Because I mean, you've got this kind of classic boy versus girl, partnership. You got the 2 guys, and you got the guy and the elephant, and then you got the 2 girls, and this like brilliant, like, that just reminds me of childhood and like those.
Yeah, that was me. That was my best friend and my older sister and her best friend.
Oh, okay,
like,
which one's the blue elephant?
Are you Neil or Wim?
I think Chuck is Neil. Yeah, so that dynamic is just like straight from my life, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we started with kind of, more sketched out kind of archetypes for the kids. We knew Wim would be kind of this dreamer.
Yeah, the dreamer, the shy friend.
Yeah, and then we knew that, Fern would be this natural leader who, was going to be really lucky that she accidentally came along. And there would be conflict about who's captain, that kind of kid bickering. And then really amazing, like through the casting process of finding these specific kids, we were able to further kind of specify these kids and make them, we just wanted them to be real and specific. And
yeah, once we cast the kids, we went back into the scripts and sort of punched everything up to be even closer to the kids' real personalities, because that allows them to bring more of themselves,
And they do things, and their approach is something that an adult is never going to be able to anticipate or to create. They just come up with moments and strange little interpretations of just blocking or what the character would do in a certain moment that we just really wanted to.
In that kid headspace.
Yeah, you want to capture the essence of who they really are. Like like Ravi is just such a personality, and I think we were probably imagining a little bit more of like a quieter dreamer kind of kid in our heads, but Ravi's got like this different kind of like electric energy where he's always like,
let's go,
sliding around, climbing up the hill and falling back down, like we wanted to make sure he could be himself.
Yeah.
On screen.
So what was the kind of audition process for those kids, and fitting into your mind like what they were? Because obviously when you're writing, you have very specific ideas of certain things.
Yeah, there was like key scenes or moments that we wanted to see how they played against each other that we had to rewrite to erase the fact that it was Star Wars or any details.
Yeah,
I
just
see.
Like,
That always baffles me as well.
It was like we created anonymous sci-fi scenes.
Yeah.
But then you watch their auditions, you watch what you wrote, but then it's also really important to watch them in between the takes and just them talking about their lives and just who they are. And
that's true. Yeah.
That informs it as well too, because it gives you a sense of who the kid is, and you get to see how big of a difference it is between their performance and their personality. And like for KB, Kiriana, who plays KB, like a lot of her personality in the show we just drew from what she's like in real life. Like she has this strange, quiet poise.
Yeah,
which we picked up from the audition process.
Natural leader.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, KB, and just the way that we knew that her character would be shy, but we didn't want that to mean that she fell too back into the background, and we wanted because and Kiriana just has this really amazing
she has a presence,
and she's really listening to what you're saying, and it makes you start to wonder.
She's really thinking.
Is what I'm saying really stupid?
Yeah, you can really see her processing, everything that she's experiencing.
How important was it in that sort of process to have them all together and to get that sort of group sort of chemistry going on? Because it's like with the Goonies.
Yes.
We've got a friend on the podcast that did like a movie with kids, and the way that you shoot it maybe is slightly different because you're always trying to get the four of them together and that kind of moment. So how did you sort of figure out that dynamic?
It was hard because it was kind of the pandemic, and we really did that first just on Zoom, which is
a Zoom chemistry
difficult.
reading is a really weird thing to do.
But the fact that it did kind of already work in that really artificial.
Yeah, if you already feel like that magic dynamic between everyone in an awkward setting, like a Zoom chemistry read, you start to feel like, oh yeah, this is only going to get better.
Yeah.
And then we were so lucky that when they met and were on set, they were going through this crazy experience of suddenly being in the show together, and they just became such good friends, and they were so sweet and supportive in this way. They would just be excited for each other, and they'd be hugging and just being sweet and nice between takes.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch them all like become best friends.
Just running down the street between stages.
Yeah. So what are the practicalities of actually working with killed actors basically in this kind of show? Because
the crew loved it because you have to take breaks all the time. The kids have to like go off and do school. You can't do long hours. So it actually makes for a really nice shooting environment.
Yeah, when you have the support and the scope that we were working at, everyone understood going in what those requirements would be.
And you're just trying to make it as fun and positive of an environment and experience for the kids as possible.
Hopefully everyone got a
so everyone experiences that.
Yeah,
I suppose one of the main benefits of kids is that they just reality and fiction are so interweaved at that sort of stage in life.
And we wanted to make sure the set was like really immersive in that way. That's why we did so many things practically, so that the kids are really interactive.
I will say though that when Jude then joined, and when he sat down, at the cockpit and was steering the ship and looking and seeing everything out the windows, I think the kids saw that his level of imagining and projecting that imagination through his eyes was so strong, and I think that was like a good lesson to them. Like, oh yeah, you have to imagine hard.
Yeah.
So what was the
That
process?
guy's really good at make believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what was the process in getting him on board? Like, why him specifically? I mean, he's great. He's really good for the character.
We always imagined a Jude Law-like character. Like that's how we would
written
talk
in the script,
about it.
So then you just send it to his agent. A Jude
Essentially,
Law-like character.
and
You have to take that off when you send it to your agent.
we didn't know that he was already a huge Star Wars fan. So as soon as we started talking to him about it, he was so excited.
Yeah, he just got it. He got the character, obviously, and just brought so much to it because he wanted the character to feel like he had an incredibly rich backstory. There were so many chapters of his life.
He's lived many lives.
Things he had gone through and survived, and you could feel them all.
Yeah, so when we put him in the show, it kind of felt like he'd already been in Star Wars for a long time, and we were just like finally putting him on screen or something like that.
It does feel that. That's exactly how it feels
Yeah.
when you're watching him. There's this like really like long lived in.
Yeah, like how is he not? Has he not been in Star Wars somewhere?
He had a bunch of scenes in the prequels that were all cut out.
Yeah, we must have missed him in something.
Yeah,
else.
I really we wanted it to feel like that.
So was there any like themes when you were in the sort of the creating process that were like really important? Because we've talked about the story, which is the let's get from A back to B or B back to A. Obviously, you've got all the great character stuff along the way. Was there any sort of themes that you wanted to explore that were important to you about friendship or the wider world that were kind of in that sort of seeding? Or did that come naturally from the creation? Because finding that ending, I suppose, is always tricky.
I think with the idea that you're looking for home, it's and wanting it to feel mythological in the way that Star
when
Wars
you're talking
does.
about leaving home and trying to find home and what does home mean,
home really becomes the
home's an internal thing.
You're tapping into like a pretty core mythological component. In there.
And that there's a thing where when Luke looks at those sons and wants to leave, maybe at that moment he's not appreciating the good things about home until he then loses it tragically, and his aunt and uncle become skeletons. And it's so scary. That we wanted to tell that story of, a safe, nice home is something that, for some reason, kids want to leave. They maybe feel hemmed in, and then once they're gone, they realize, oh, home is actually kind of amazing. I need to appreciate that in a new way, in a way that you've now matured into, in a because you've gone through that journey. Yeah, so it's something around there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like Jon Favreau and another great John.
Another great John.
Just how that sort of conversation. How that developed and what the input was.
It started on the set of Spider-Man. We were shooting a scene, and he had an iPad that had dailies from The Mandalorian that he was like looking at and just showing people on set. He was like, "Hey, look at this! Is this cool?"
You showing it. No one's supposed to see this. Look.
Yeah. It was okay. It was a close set. And I said, "Hey, do you know about the thing that I've been developing over at Lucasfilm?" And I gave him like the shortest pitch possible, and he was like, That sounds really fun. Would you be interested in me producing it? Because we've been sort of, developing this sort of system. And I was like, yeah, that would be great, Jon Favreau, of course.
So being in the right time and place, all you've got to do is make a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, you have to be on set.
Happen to have Jon Favreau on set.
Yeah, you have to make 3.
Yeah.
No, and it was like just all the timing just all lined up perfectly, so that we were essentially, as soon as we finished shooting that, we started writing the actual proper drafts for John and Dave Filoni, and then it just moved really quickly.
So what was that micro pitch like? What did you?
It was like it's about a group of kids that get lost in the Star Wars galaxy and have to find their way home.
It's great.
And he was like, "Yeah, okay,
I'd make that."
Yeah.
So
he was like, "What if they met pirates?" Like,
right? Yeah.
He was like, pirates.
Classic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Classic Star Wars pirates as well.
Yeah, well, because he was already exploring these edges of the galaxy in Mando, so he just saw like what a ripe opportunity it was.
Yeah, and there are some nice parallels in the kind of characters. I mean, like the kind of wolf character. I don't even know what creature it is. But
Shistavainen?
I mean, it
doesn't have
it's serious.
pronunciation on Wikipedia.
No,
it's serious, but it's actually really, really funny as well. I mean,
Yes.
like, just brilliant characters.
What's great, like.
Well, he's actually scary. I mean, that suit is so cool. It's so alive. The way that his muzzle,
snout
snarls and actually talks.
Yeah, it was
live.
It
It's
was
insane.
pre-programmed to all the dialogue. We recorded all the dialogue ahead of time, and then the animatronic people programmed the mouth to move. So what you're seeing is like an actual in-camera werewolf.
And I just love seeing that the directors have to go talk to him and give him a suggestion. And he's like,
you're afraid to give him a note.
Yeah, in case he eats you.
Yeah.
So what were some of the creative sort of maybe moments that you had from those two, like Dave and
Oh my
John?
gosh.
Like, I mean, obviously there's going to be an endless
They were just
amount,
always there if we needed them. You know, we'd pitch things to them, we'd look for ideas, but they were basically
The perfect.
they're like the biggest fans. So
Yeah.
like they're our first audience. They're the biggest Star Wars fans in the world. So you're pitching to them as basically your first audience members, you know, and seeing, you know, what they like and what they don't like, and, you know, getting just amazing ideas from them. But I always say they felt just like a giant safety net below us, and they just sort of encouraged us to run with our idea, and if, you know, they would make sure we stayed on track.
So when you were sort of developing the idea, was it always this is going to be one series because they go away, then they come home, or was there discussions of beyond that into
Well,
another
I mean,
sphere?
you know, we wanted it to have an end and a
I see, yeah.
conclusion.
We wanted to make sure that the season had a really solid beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
But, you know, if people like it and want to see more Skeleton Crew, we're
can go on
ready to
another
do it.
adventure.
And there's a built-in dramatic component already to just the kids growing up.
Yeah,
like
that's
they're
true.
already, you know, a lot older than they were when we started. And
Yeah,
it's
it'll
really
be a
interesting
different
to see-
scenario because
yeah.
they'll be older.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see who they grow up to become.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like
in
to see
a war-torn galaxy.
full-grown blue elephant would be pretty exciting.
Exactly.
And he gets smaller and smaller.
He
as
gets
ages.
smaller. What?
Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
So what were the biggest challenges of, you know, actually once you'd written it, you'd gone through the sort of that process. You're on the set. You've obviously done sort of, you know, big movies before, but how is this different? What were some of the sort of difficult bits?
The biggest challenge is more like during prep, where you have such a rich, complex galaxy to choose from, like to choose locations,
that's
to
true.
choose
Designs.
Yeah, so you're sort of like overwhelmed with incredible location options and alien options and ship design options. Like being able to like limit your focus to pick the right thing for the story sometimes is hard because everything is cool.
Yeah, sometimes the actually the best design or the coolest idea for a spaceship isn't the one that you have to pick because you need to pick the one that serves the story better.
Yeah,
and the
which is
characters.
this weird feeling. You kind of feel like, oh, am I blowing this? Should we, you know?
Yeah.
But you have to kind of stay true to the story. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that's the guide. But so I think that would be good. And it's like a good problem.
Yeah.
That's what the thing on this. We had so much support and we were so fortunate the whole way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the home planet especially, like it feels like such a lovely like suburban 80s street with like sort of subtle sci-fi elements like woven in.
Well, the idea was that it's a nice place to live. It's like safe. It's a little bit quiet, and that's what we needed it to be from a story perspective. And so you take that idea and you pitch it to your production designer Oliver Scholl and the design team like Doug Chang and everyone at Lucasfilm, and sort of see what they come back with. And yeah, that was another just like fun process. Like it needs to serve this point in the story. What does that look like in the quickest, simplest way possible?
And I think that's one of the things I really love about this is that, you know, some of Star Wars really like focus on the world around the world, if that makes sense. Like the side planets, the politics.
Yeah, every
the
part of
day-to-day.
Star Wars is interesting. Like even the mundane, details at the edges of the galaxy.
Well, because it gives it sort of context and reality.
Yeah.
So just last question to both of you. I mean, obviously you've gone through you've worked together for a little while. You've done some big stuff. What was some advice for yourself when you were starting out, maybe before you got to that big break? 'Cause, I mean, you've explained very well how you got to Star Wars, but
Well, what did I say to you at the beginning of this?
Though it's a marathon.
Yeah, it's endurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have to find a way to maintain the same level of like excitement and enthusiasm like on day one as you do on like day 250 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's about. Trying to capture that and maintain that.
Yeah, and you have this kind of boost to that because it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can always, if you're feeling tired, you're feeling worn out from a hard weeks of shooting, you can. I always found I could just stop and go, wait, think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd go sit in like Wim's house.
Yeah, it's just
like
just
being
hanging out
in
on the
Wim's
sets.
house.
Yeah, just sitting in the.
It's a nice space to be. Yeah.
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 Wonderful. Oh well, massive congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I was emailing and asking if there were more episodes to watch.
Yeah, sorry, you have to wait.
You kind of had the biggest gap because
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, but we get to see it first.
There you go.
Which is pretty cool.
Amazing.
So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, glad you like it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.